One wrong table, one unexpected kiss, and a secret that could ruin them both. She never planned to meet him. He never planned to keep her. But when fate made her his secretary, their lives became a dangerous mix of desire, lies, and choices that would test the limits of trust. This isn't just how they fell in love. It's how they almost lost everything. Sophia took a deep breath before stepping into the elegant restaurant, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. It's just one date, she told herself. Chloe says he's nice. But this wasn't her idea. Chloe, her ever-persistent best friend, had convinced her to try a blind date. She was late, flustered, and unsure if this was going to be worth it. Scanning the room, she spotted him, alone at the back table wearing a crisp white shirt, exactly as Chloe had described in the message. There was a small cake with colorful icing in the center of the table. Her heart melted. He remembered my birthday? How sweet. She approached with a smile. Hi, you must be Michael, right? She said, pulling out the chair. I can't believe you even knew my birthday. That's so thoughtful. The man, William, looked up, his brow furrowed slightly, but before he could speak, Sophia continued. I've been on a lot of dates, but this is a first. You're scoring major points. She reached for the knife, sliced a generous piece of the cake, and took a bite. Wow, this is delicious. Did you have it custom made? William's lips twitched in amusement. He said nothing, letting the scene play out. The truth was, he wasn't here for a date at all. He was waiting for his assistant, Trevor, who was bringing the guest of honor, the birthday boy. The cake? Not for her. The moment shattered when Trevor arrived, carrying a small French bulldog wearing a blue birthday hat. Sorry for the delay, Mr. Bennett, Trevor said. Bentley was a little fussy about the hat. Sophia froze, fork in hand, eyes darting between the cake, the dog, and the men. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, she stammered, quickly standing. I think I'm at the wrong table. Trevor tried to hide his grin. William, still calm and slightly amused, said, Don't worry, it happens. Her cheeks blazing red, Sophia grabbed her bag and practically bolted from the restaurant. 2 days later, she still couldn't shake the humiliation. Chloe found it hilarious. At least you're memorable, Chloe teased. He'll never forget you. Memorable for crashing his dog's birthday party, Sophia muttered, burying herself in work. She was an administrative assistant at a large marketing company, a demanding but stable job that paid the bills and helped support her sick mother. She didn't have time for embarrassment. But that morning, the office buzzed with anticipation. The new CEO was arriving. No one knew much about him, only that he was taking over effective immediately. At 9 a.m., the elevator opened. Sophia, holding a stack of reports, looked up and froze. It was him, William. Their eyes met. She felt the heat rise in her cheeks again. He gave a polite professional nod. Good morning. Then he walked past her into the conference room. Later that morning, William called Trevor into his office. I need a personal secretary, someone reliable, today. Trevor returned with a folder of candidates from within the company. William flipped through the profiles without much interest, until one stopped him cold. Sophia Clark. I want her, he said. Trevor raised a brow. That was quick. Bring her in. Sophia's heart pounded when she got the call to report to the CEO's office. She stepped in, and there he was behind a polished mahogany desk. Please, have a seat, Miss Clark, William said, his tone even. I need a personal secretary. I've heard good things about your work. I believe you're the right fit. It wasn't a request. It was a decision. Sophia hesitated, aware that working for him meant reliving her embarrassment daily. But she needed the job. Of course, sir. I'll do my best. Good. You're hired. From that day forward, her world shifted. Her new role demanded that she manage his schedule, prepare reports, and accompany him to high-profile meetings. And though she tried to stay strictly professional, she couldn't ignore the way he looked at her, calm, confident, and, at times, strangely kind. One evening after a long day, William offered her a ride home. She tried to decline, but he insisted. When they reached her building, she twisted her ankle stepping out of the car. Before she could protest, he scooped her up and carried her to her apartment. She was mortified. But deep down, part of her felt safe in his arms. It was a feeling she couldn't quite explain. Sophia tried to convince herself that she could keep things strictly professional. William Bennett might be her boss now, but he was also the man who had seen her humiliate herself over a dog's birthday cake. No matter how competent she acted, she could feel his gaze on her at times, measured, assessing, almost curious. A week into her new position, William approached her desk. "Miss Clark, you'll be accompanying me to some external meetings this week," he said. "It's important you meet our key clients." Sophia nodded. "Of course, sir. I'll prepare the necessary documents." Their first meeting went smoothly. She admired how confident and decisive he was, how quickly he earned the respect of everyone in the room. But every so often she caught him glancing at her as though gauging her reactions. Afterward, he suggested lunch to discuss the next steps. "It's challenging," she admitted when he asked how she was adjusting, "but I'm learning a lot." "I value people who adapt quickly," he replied with a faint smile. The lunch passed without incident, but there was an undercurrent she couldn't quite place. That evening, he insisted on driving her home again. The conversation in the car was light, but she could feel the pull of something she was trying hard to ignore. 2 days later, Trevor appeared at her desk. "Mr. Bennett wants to see you. It's urgent." When she stepped into William's office, he was standing by the window, hands in his pockets. "There's an investor event this Friday," he began. "I need you to accompany me and pretend to be my girlfriend." Sophia blinked. "Your girlfriend?" He gave a small, uncharacteristic pause before explaining. "My ex, Vanessa, will be there. She has a way of lingering. This will make things less awkward. Just one night." It was an absurd request, but she couldn't bring herself to refuse outright. "All right, but I don't want any payment for it." His eyes flickered with surprise. "Very well. Thank you, Sophia." Friday came quickly. Chloe helped her get ready, lending her an elegant dress and teasing her mercilessly. "If I didn't know better, I'd think you actually liked this guy," Chloe said with a smirk. When William arrived to pick her up, he paused for a beat before speaking. "You look stunning." His voice was softer than usual. At the event, she played her role perfectly, smiling, engaging in polite conversation, standing close enough to sell the illusion. Vanessa approached not long after, her smile sharp as glass. "And this must be my girlfriend, Sophia," William said smoothly, taking her hand. Vanessa's eyes flicked over Sophia, appraising and dismissive. "Interesting. Well, enjoy the evening." She left without another word. The rest of the night passed without incident, and on the way home, William glanced at her with a small smile. "You were incredible tonight. Thank you." "It was my pleasure, Mr. Bennett," she replied, trying to ignore the warmth in her chest. But the next morning, Sophia overheard 2 colleagues gossiping in the elevator lobby. "Did you see Mr. Bennett with that woman last night?" "He could do much better. She's not exactly in his league." The words stung more than she wanted to admit. "It's not like it's real," she reminded herself. "Why should I care what they think?" Soon after, William invited her to dinner after a client meeting. Conversation drifted from business to personal stories. She told him about her mother, Grace, who was recovering from surgery. He listened attentively, and when she mentioned she was heading to the hospital afterward, he insisted on joining her. Grace was sleeping peacefully when they arrived. William kept his voice low, asking gentle questions about her recovery. When she stirred awake and saw him, she smiled. "Is this your boyfriend, Sophia?" she asked, her voice hopeful. Sophia froze. She could have corrected her, but something inside her couldn't bring herself to do it. "Yes, Mom," she said softly. Grace's eyes sparkled. "Finally, he seems wonderful." The next day over coffee, Sophia confessed to William what she'd said. "My mom thinks we're together. I just didn't want her to worry about me being alone while she's sick. I know it's a lot to ask, but could you play along? Just for a while?" William didn't hesitate. "Of course, if it helps her, and you, I'll do it." And just like that, they had a new arrangement, one that required them to pretend, but neither of them could ignore how real some moments already felt. Over the next week, William played his role flawlessly. At the hospital, he greeted Grace warmly, asked after her health, and even brought flowers on his own initiative. Grace took to him immediately, calling him a true gentleman and teasing Sophia about how lucky she was. Between hospital visits and long days at the office, Sophia and William began to spend more time together than she had expected. They laughed more easily now, about little things, like Trevor's overly serious demeanor or the odd quirks of certain clients. The arrangement was supposed to be just for Grace's sake, yet Sophia found herself thinking about William when she wasn't with him. One night after leaving the hospital, William walked her to her apartment door as usual. Before she could thank him and go inside, he caught her arm gently. "Sophia." "Wait," he said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. She turned, and the intensity in his gaze stole her breath. He stepped closer, hesitating for a fraction of a second, then kissed her. The kiss was gentle, searching, almost uncertain. She froze at first, then her body seemed to decide for her. She kissed him back, forgetting for a moment that this wasn't supposed to be real. When they pulled apart, William's voice was low and steady. "I know this is just an arrangement, but it's getting hard to pretend." Sophia didn't know how to answer. Her heart was racing, her mind spinning. She stepped inside without a word, leaving William standing in the hall, watching her door close. The next morning, she arrived early, hoping to collect herself before the workday began. But William seemed unchanged, calm, professional, if maybe a touch warmer than usual. She tried to focus on her tasks, yet she caught him glancing at her more than once. That afternoon, while waiting for the elevator, Sophia overheard voices in the hallway, low, tense. "Miss Clark, we've been waiting too long for that payment," one man said. "You know our patience only goes so far," another added. Sophia turned to face them, heart hammering. These were the loan sharks she had borrowed from to pay for her mother's surgery. "Please," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Just a little more time. I'm close to getting the money." What she didn't know was that William, leaving through a side exit, had overheard everything. That night, William sat in his penthouse replaying the conversation in his mind. Is this why she sat at my table that night? Was it all planned? The idea clawed at him. His memories of her smile, her laugh, the way she cared for her mother, were they all just part of a scheme? The next day, he didn't greet her. His tone was clipped, his instructions brief. By mid-afternoon, Sophia couldn't stand it any longer. She knocked on his office door. "Have I done something wrong?" she asked, crossing her arms to hide her nerves. He leaned back in his chair, eyes cool. Was sitting at my table that night really a coincidence? Or was it a carefully planned strategy? Her jaw dropped. "What are you implying?" "That you knew who I was, and used me to solve your problems. I heard you last night talking to those men." Anger flared in her chest. "Do you really think I could manipulate someone like that? That I would?" William didn't answer right away, but the suspicion in his eyes was answer enough. "I expected more from you," she said finally, her voice shaking. Then she left, the door slamming behind her. William sat alone, but her words echoed in his mind. Later, Trevor came in with reports and found his boss uncharacteristically unsettled. "If I may, sir," Trevor said carefully, "Sophia is one of the most hard-working people here. She takes care of her mom without asking for help from anyone. If you think she's using you, you might be mistaken." That night, William barely slept. What if he'd misjudged her? What if his accusation had destroyed something that could never be repaired? The following evening, he found her in the hospital waiting room, exhaustion in her posture. She looked up, surprise flashing into guarded coolness. "I came to apologize," he said. "I was wrong, Sophia. I jumped to conclusions without knowing the truth." She stared at him, torn between hurt and something else. "Do you know how hard it is to be accused of something you didn't do? I would never do what you thought." "I know that now," he said quietly. "Just tell me how I can make it right." Sophia didn't answer. Not yet. After that night in the hospital waiting room, William made good on his promise to make things right. It started small. Fresh coffee on her desk in the morning, offering to help with reports that weren't strictly his job, making sure her schedule left enough time for hospital visits. He didn't push her to forgive him. He simply showed up, again and again, in ways she couldn't ignore. At first, Sophia kept her distance. She accepted the coffee, said polite thank yous, and maintained a professional tone. But gradually, the raw anger faded, replaced by a cautious curiosity. Was he really doing this because he cared, or because guilt demanded it? One afternoon, while they worked side by side on a high-stakes presentation, William broke the silence. "Sophia, I don't need any proof of your honesty. I trust you now. I'm just sorry I didn't before." She looked at him, caught off guard by the sincerity in his voice. "Trust isn't something you can rebuild overnight," she said honestly. "It's going to take time." "I'm willing to wait," he replied without hesitation. The next few days brought a subtle shift between them. The air no longer felt heavy. Their conversations were easier, still professional, but with a hint of warmth. One evening, William suggested dinner after a long day. "We've earned it," he said, his tone lighter than it had been in weeks. They went to a quiet restaurant where the conversation flowed naturally. Sophia found herself laughing at his dry humor, forgetting for a while that they were supposed to be in the process of mending something broken. When he dropped her off at her apartment, he lingered at the door, as if on the verge of saying something, but instead he simply smiled and said, "Good night, Sophia." The next morning she found a handwritten note on her desk. "Meeting at 2 p.m. with a new client. You're coming with me." Chloe noticed it immediately. "Work or a date in disguise?" she teased. "It's work," Sophia replied, though she couldn't hide the small smile tugging at her lips. The meeting was a success, and afterward, William surprised her by suggesting they skip traffic and have dinner nearby. They spoke about future projects, but the conversation drifted. His childhood summers in the countryside, her favorite books, the little habits they each had that no one else seemed to notice. At one point, he looked at her and said, "I know I gave you reasons to doubt me, but I want to be a better person for you, Sophia." She didn't know what to say. The words landed heavier than she expected, settling in her chest like a seed that might one day grow. Not everyone in the office was happy about their closeness. Emily, a competitive colleague with a knack for stirring trouble, cornered Sophia at her desk one afternoon. "You really know how to play the game, don't you? Staying close to the boss. I wonder how far that'll take you." Sophia blinked, stunned. "What are you implying, Emily?" Emily smirked. "Oh, nothing, just people talk." Before Sophia could reply, William appeared, his voice sharp. "Emily, my office, now." Emily froze. "It was just, I don't care what it was. I won't tolerate this kind of behavior toward anyone on my team. Is that clear?" Emily stammered an apology before retreating. William turned to Sophia, his tone softening. "Don't let people like her get to you. You're here because of your work, nothing else." Sophia managed a small smile. "Thank you." Later that week, William disappeared for a few hours in the middle of the day without explanation. Sophia didn't think much of it, until Chloe came to her with a rumor she'd overheard. "Apparently, William confronted the guys you borrowed money from," Chloe whispered. "Paid them off, told them to leave you alone for good." The news hit Sophia like a wave. Anger, gratitude, confusion all at once. She stormed into his office. "Why did you do that?" she demanded. "Because I care about you," he said simply, "and I couldn't stand knowing you were still being threatened." "That was my problem to solve, William. Now it feels like I owe you something, and I never wanted that." He stepped around the desk, meeting her eyes. "You don't owe me anything. I did it because I wanted to protect you." They stood in silence for a beat too long, the air charged. Then, without warning, he kissed her, slowly, deliberately, as though telling her without words that this was no longer about pretense. When they parted, his voice was low. "Sophia Clark, will you be my girlfriend?" Her heart pounded. She searched his eyes for doubt, for anything that would make her hesitate, but she found only certainty. "Yes," she said at last, "I will." From the moment Sophia said yes, something shifted between them. Work was still intense, deadlines, demanding clients, high-stakes presentations, but there was a new undercurrent, a quiet warmth that seemed to follow them through the day. William smiled more often now, even in meetings. Sophia found herself relaxing in his presence, though she kept their relationship discreet in the office. They didn't want whispers to overshadow her professional credibility. Still, the signs were there, the lingering glances, the small smiles, the way he always found an excuse to stop by her desk. One afternoon, as they reviewed a marketing campaign, William leaned back in his chair. "Have I told you how talented you are at this?" Sophia chuckled. "You might be exaggerating. I'm just doing my job." "No," he said firmly. "Your dedication is inspiring." Her cheeks warmed. She opened her mouth to respond, but Chloe burst into the room with a stack of documents. "Hope I'm not interrupting anything important." She winked at Sophia. Sophia rolled her eyes, while William's lips curved into an amused smile. "We're working, Chloe." "Uh-huh," Chloe said, clearly unconvinced before leaving. Outside the office, William began making a point of spending time with Grace. One evening, while visiting the hospital together, he told Sophia, "I'd like to see more of your mom. She's an amazing woman." Sophia frowned in surprise. "You want to spend more time in a hospital?" "It's not about the place. If she's important to you, then she's important to me." Grace greeted him warmly, joking, "You know, William, you're stealing my daughter's attention from me." "I'm just making sure you get better so you can keep beating me at cards," he replied, earning a laugh. It wasn't lost on Sophia how seamlessly William fit into her family dynamic. She was still guarded, but the walls were lowering. A week later, he surprised her with a weekend outing. "You've been under too much pressure," he said. "Let me take you somewhere quiet." They drove to a park outside the city, walking under leafy trees until they reached a bench near a calm lake. The air smelled of pine, the water glinting in the afternoon sun. "Thank you for this," Sophia said, her voice soft. "I really needed it." "You deserve more than this," he replied gently, taking her hand. They sat together, her telling him stories from her childhood, him listening as though every word mattered. When she mentioned her fear of losing her independence, he didn't try to argue. He simply held her gaze. "You have so much strength, Sophia," he said. "I admire that." "And you make me believe I can be even stronger," she admitted. He leaned in, kissing her with quiet tenderness. It wasn't hurried or fiery. It was grounding, filled with unspoken promises. Back at the office, they worked to keep things balanced. William valued her ideas, even asking for her input in high-level meetings. But their dynamic was tested when a meeting with investors turned tense. Sophia disagreed with one of his strategies and voiced it openly in front of the group. Afterward, he called her into his office. "You could have told me your ideas before the meeting," he said, trying to sound stern. "I thought you liked challenges," she teased lightly. "I do," he admitted, "but you caught me off guard. That rarely happens." They laughed, easing the tension. They were still figuring out how to navigate being both colleagues and partners. Then came the call from Chloe one afternoon. "Sophia, you need to come to the hospital now. Your mom's condition has worsened." Sophia dropped everything. William, seeing the urgency in her face, insisted on going with her. Grace was stable when they arrived, but the doctor explained she would need extra care in the months ahead. Sophia sat in silence, tears slipping down her cheeks as she absorbed the news. William held her hand without saying a word, his presence a steady anchor. In the days that followed, he adjusted her work schedule so she could spend more time at the hospital, handled meetings she couldn't attend, and even arranged transportation for her. "You don't have to do all this," she told him one evening. "I want to," he said simply. "I want to be your strength when you need it." That night, as they worked late at the office, she kissed him first, slow and sure. When they pulled back, they both knew something had changed. They weren't just balancing work and romance anymore. They were building a partnership neither had expected, but both now wanted to protect. As Grace's health stabilized, Sophia began to find her rhythm again, balancing work, hospital visits, and moments with William. Their relationship, while still discreet at the office, was no longer a fragile secret. A few trusted friends like Chloe knew, but the whispers in the hallways hinted that others had guessed. One afternoon, Chloe leaned over Sophia's desk. "There's something you should know," she murmured. "Emily's been stirring the pot again. She's telling people you're only here because of William." Sophia's shoulders tensed. "That's not surprising. Emily's always seen me as a threat." "Maybe," Chloe said, "but now she's trying to get others on her side. Just be careful." That evening, Sophia went to William's office. "I need to handle something on my own," she told him. "Rumors are spreading, and if you step in, it'll look like you're protecting me because of what we have. I want my work to speak for itself." He studied her, clearly torn. "I understand," he said at last. "But you know I'm here if you need me." 2 nights later, William received a call from his head of security. "Mr. Bennett, those men you paid to leave Miss Clark alone, they've been seen hanging around again." William's jaw clenched. "Keep an eye on them, and let me know exactly where they are." The next evening, without telling Sophia, he walked into a dimly lit bar downtown. The 2 men looked up, surprise flickering into wariness. "We don't want trouble, Mr. Bennett," one said quickly. "Then stay away from Sophia and her mother," William said, his tone low and even. "If I see either of you near them again, the consequences won't be financial." The warning landed. The men nodded, murmuring agreements before he left. For 2 days afterward, William seemed quieter, his gaze distant. Sophia noticed and decided to confront him. At the end of the day, she closed his office door behind her. "What's going on? You've been acting strange." He hesitated, then sighed. "I went to see those men again. I found out they'd been hanging around, and I wanted to make sure they wouldn't trouble you anymore." Sophia stared at him, startled. "You did this again? Without telling me?" "I did it because I care," he said firmly. "They were a threat, and I wasn't going to ignore it." Her frustration rose. "William, I can fight my own battles. I don't want to feel like I'm dependent on you for everything." He stepped closer, his voice gentler now. "I don't want you to be dependent. I want you to know you can rely on me when you need to. That's different." The tension in her chest loosened, though she didn't fully drop her guard. "You have to trust me too," she said quietly. "I do," he said. Then he kissed her, softly, not to win the argument, but as a promise that they'd find the balance together. The following months were a mixture of challenges and joy. Work demands remained high, but they had learned to stand side by side, not in each other's shadow. William's protectiveness didn't vanish, but he made an effort to respect her independence. Sophia, in turn, began to trust that his gestures weren't about control, they were about care. Then came the news Sophia had been waiting for. "Mrs. Clark is recovering very well," the doctor told her over the phone. "We can discharge her in a few days." Sophia burst into William's office, her smile brighter than he'd ever seen it. "My mom's coming home." William's face lit up. "That's incredible, Sophia. I want to help bring her home." On Saturday, they went together to the hospital. Grace's eyes sparkled when she saw them. "My girl," she said, hugging Sophia, then turning to William with mock suspicion. "You've been taking good care of her, haven't you?" "I try my best," he replied with a warm smile. In the weeks that followed, Grace's health continued to improve. She teased William often, telling Sophia she had a keeper. Sophia pretended to roll her eyes, but deep down she agreed. One evening, William asked Sophia to keep the upcoming weekend free. "I have a surprise planned," he said, refusing to reveal more. When Saturday came, he drove her to a secluded beach at sunset. A gazebo decorated with string lights and flower petals stood waiting, with a table set for 2. "What is all this?" she asked, stunned. "Dinner," he said simply, but there was a nervous energy about him. After they ate, he stood, taking her hand. "Sophia, you've changed my life in ways I can't explain. I don't want to spend another day without you by my side." Then he knelt. "Will you marry me?" Her hands flew to her mouth, tears welling. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, William. 1,000 times yes." Months of quiet planning led to a perfect spring morning. The sun cast a golden glow over the small coastal town where William and Sophia had chosen to marry. The ceremony was set in a garden overlooking the ocean, rows of white chairs facing an arch draped in soft blooms. Sophia stood in a private room, the weight of her dress both grounding and surreal. Grace fussed over the veil with teary eyes. "You look like a dream, my girl," she whispered. Sophia smiled, steadying her own emotions. "I learned from you, Mom. You've always shown me what love should be." Down at the altar, William paced with a barely restrained smile. He'd faced corporate takeovers with less nerves than this moment. Chloe, serving as Sophia's maid of honor, peeked around the corner and gave him a thumbs up. When the music began, the guests rose. William's breath caught as Sophia appeared. Her steps were slow, graceful, her gaze fixed on him. Every moment they had lived, every awkward start, every misunderstanding, every fragile reconciliation seemed to weave together into this walk down the aisle. The officiant welcomed everyone and spoke briefly about love as both a choice and a commitment. Then William took Sophia's hands, his voice strong but tinged with emotion. "Sophia, you've taught me what true love is. I promise to stand by you in every moment, to support you, to respect you, and to love you for all my days." Her voice trembled, but she spoke with conviction. "William, you came into my life when I least expected it, and you've brought light, strength, and love. I promise to face whatever comes with you, to grow with you, and to cherish every day we have together." When the officiant declared them husband and wife, their kiss was met with warm applause, the ocean breeze carrying the sound across the garden. The reception was filled with laughter, heartfelt speeches, and a dance floor that stayed busy well into the night. Grace watched from her seat, her heart full. Seeing her daughter in William's arms, she felt a peace she hadn't known in years. Chloe leaned over and said, "Looks like they're going to be just fine." Grace smiled. "Better than fine." The months that followed were a blend of work, home, and learning to navigate life as partners. They made time for dinners together even during William's busiest weeks, and Sophia continued to thrive professionally, earning respect on her own merit. There were challenges, of course, late nights at the office, disagreements over business strategies, and the constant balancing act between career and marriage. But each challenge ended the same way, with them sitting across from each other, talking things through, refusing to let pride come between them. One autumn evening, William took Sophia back to the park by the lake where they'd first opened up to each other. The leaves blazed in shades of gold and crimson, and the air carried a crispness that hinted at the coming winter. "Remember this spot?" he asked, smiling as they sat on the same bench. "Of course," she said. "You told me I had strength. I didn't believe you then. And now? Now I know you were right. But I've learned something else. Strength isn't just about standing alone. Sometimes it's about letting someone stand with you." William reached for her hand, his thumb brushing over her wedding ring. "And I've learned that love isn't about fixing everything for someone. It's about facing things together." Years later, they would look back on their story as proof that love didn't have to be perfect to be real. It could begin with a mistake, survive suspicion and hurt, and still grow into something unshakable. Sophia often teased him about Bentley's birthday cake, the moment that started it all. "If it weren't for your dog, we might never have met," she'd say. William would smile and reply, "If it weren't for you, I'd still think a good life was just about success. Turns out, it's about the right person to share it with." On their 5th anniversary, they returned to that same beach where he had proposed. This time, they brought Grace and Chloe, a small picnic, and Bentley, still feisty despite the years. Watching the waves crash under the setting sun, Sophia leaned against William, her voice quiet. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." "Always," he promised. And with that, their story continued, not as a fairy tale, but as something far better, a life built on trust, effort, and the kind of love that never stopped choosing the other day after day.